Think about the last time a year felt long, really long. Long enough that you could feel every month inside it, every season turning, every small thing changing. You probably have to go back to childhood to find that feeling. Back when a single summer stretched out like a continent. Back when waiting for your birthday felt like waiting for a geological era to end. Now, summers vanish. Years collapse. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet alarm has started going off. Why does it feel like someone is speeding up the clock? The answer is not in your imagination. It is not simply that you are busier or more distracted or less present. The answer lives deep inside the structure of your brain, inside the way your nervous system processes novelty, inside the mathematics of proportion that your mind has been running since the day you were born. Time is not accelerated, but your experience of it is, and once you understand why, you will never look at a calendar the same again. Start with a number. When you were 10 years old, 1 year represented 10% of your entire existence. Every single thing you had ever felt, learned, seen, or survived fit inside 10 of those units. One more year was enormous. It was a full tenth of everything you had ever known. Now imagine you are 40. 1 year is 2.5% of your life. The same 365 days, the same rotation of the earth, the same number of heartbeats, but now it is a sliver, a thin slice of an already enormous pie. This is called the proportionality hypothesis, and the philosopher Paul Janet first proposed a version of it in the 19th century. The older you get, the smaller each new unit of time becomes relative to everything that came before it. Your brain is not measuring time in minutes. It is measuring it in fractions of a life. But proportion alone does not explain everything. There is something else happening inside your brain, something more biological, something that has everything to do with what your nervous system is designed to pay attention to. Your brain is not a clock. It is a prediction engine, and it runs on novelty. When you were young, everything was new. The way soap smells, the weight of a backpack, the social architecture of a school cafeteria, your first heartbreak, your first embarrassment, your first understanding that adults do not actually have all the answers. Every single one of these experiences was being processed by a brain, encountering it for the first time. A brain that had to slow down, build new neural pathways, encode new memories, construct a new model of the novel experiences take cognitive effort, and cognitive effort feels like time. Neuroscientist David Eagleman has spent years studying how the brain encodes time, and his research points to something counterintuitive. When you are having a genuinely new experience, your brain lays down richer, denser memory traces. More information is encoded, more detail is stored, and when you look back on that period later, it feels longer, because there is more mental content to move through. A 2-week trip to a foreign country where everything is unfamiliar will feel in memory longer than 2 months of routine at home. Your brain is not measuring clock time. It is measuring information density. This is why childhood feels long in memory. Not because the days were actually slower, but because your brain was encoding everything at maximum resolution. Every experience was novel. Every moment was rich with first-time data. Your hippocampus was working overtime, building the scaffolding of a self. When you look back at age 7 or 12 or 15, there is so much stored material that the distance feels vast, like a library with 1,000 rooms. And when you look back at last year, at 40, at 50, the library has fewer new additions, the same familiar shelves, the same architecture you already know. Time collapsed because novelty collapsed. The psychologist William James wrote about this in 1890 in his foundational work, The Principles of Psychology. He observed that as life becomes more routine, time seems to grow shorter. In youth, he noted, we are always doing something new, and our attention is constantly recruited by novel stimulation. In old age, the days and weeks smooth themselves out into a featureless plane. James was writing before neuroscience existed as a field, but he had identified something real. Routine is the enemy of perceived time. Familiarity compresses memory. And your adult life, with its established habits and known environments, is a machine for producing routine. Here is where it gets stranger. Your brain does not just compress familiar time and memory. It compresses it in the present moment, too. Studies by Cindy Lustig and her colleagues at the University of Michigan have shown that older adults are less likely to spontaneously encode incidental details about their environment, not because their brains are failing, but because their brains have become efficient. An efficient brain does not waste processing power on things it already knows. It runs on autopilot through the familiar, and autopilot time is fast time. You have driven a familiar route home and arrived with no memory of the journey. That is your brain in efficiency mode. That is routine consuming time without leaving a trace. Think about the first time you drove to a new city. Every exit ramp was a decision. Every unfamiliar sign required attention. The drive felt long. Now think about your commute to work. The route you have taken 500 times. You barely experience it at all. The brain has optimized it into near nothing. The older you get, the more of your life has been filed away into these automatic routines, and the faster the days begin to blur. So the question becomes, can you do anything about it? Can you slow time back down? Can you return to some version of that childhood feeling where a year feels like a year? Researchers suggest that the answer is yes, but not through relaxation, not through doing less. The answer, counterintuitively, is novelty, friction, newness on purpose. Mark Wittmann, a German researcher at the Institute for Frontier Areas of Psychology and Mental Health, has written extensively on the subjective experience of time. His work suggests that the feeling of time moving too fast is not inevitable. It is partly a consequence of how we structure our lives. When people deliberately seek out new experiences, learn new skills, travel to unfamiliar places, meet people who think differently from them, their brains are forced back into high-resolution encoding mode. The cognitive effort returns. The memory traces thicken, and when they look back, the time feels fuller, not longer in a painful way, but denser, richer, more inhabited. There is something almost eerie about this when you apply it backward. The moments in your life that you remember most vividly, the ones that feel furthest away even if they happened only years ago, are almost always moments of intense novelty. The first day in a new country, a sudden unexpected loss, the moment you fell in love with, a decision that changed everything. These moments were so unusual, so far outside your brain's predictive model, that your nervous system had no choice but to pay full attention. And full attention means full encoding. And full encoding means a memory that feels, from the inside, like a long time. Your brain interprets vivid memory as duration. The richer the record, the longer the experience seems to have lasted. This is why trauma can feel like it stretched out for years. This is why a near accident on a highway feels like it took minutes when it took seconds. Under extreme stress or extreme novelty, the brain kicks into maximum recording mode, and time dilates. Not real time, experienced time. Now think about what this means for the shape of your life. If your days are predictable, if your environment is stable, if your challenges are familiar, if your relationships have settled into known patterns, if your work is something your hands do while your mind wanders elsewhere, then you are living in cognitive efficiency mode. You are burning through days at a rate that will leave almost nothing behind in memory. You will arrive at the end of a year and genuinely not know where it went. Not because you were careless, but because your brain was doing exactly what it was designed to do, running the familiar on autopilot to save energy for threats and decisions. This is not a moral failure, it is not laziness, it is biology. A brain that had to consciously process every breath, every footstep, every routine conversation would be a brain that exhausted itself before noon. Efficiency is survival, but efficiency has a cost, and the cost is felt in the strange grief of a year that vanished without leaving fingerprints. The ancient Romans did not have this problem in quite the same way, not because they were wiser, but because their environments were far less predictable. Crops failed, diseases arrived without warning, empires shifted. Every season brought genuine uncertainty. The cognitive load of basic survival was enormous by modern standards. A Roman farmer at 40 had not spent 25 years in controlled, climate-managed, algorithm-sorted environment. His brain could not afford to go on autopilot. Novelty was not something he had to seek. It was something he had to survive. You are living in the most comfortable, most predictable, most routine-enabling environment in the history of your species. And your brain is doing exactly what it evolved to do inside that environment. It is getting very, very efficient, and that efficiency is eating your time. But here is the thing. You already know how to feel time slow down. You have felt it. You felt it in every new experience you have ever had. The first week at a new school, the first days of a trip you saved up for, the first months with someone you had just fallen in love with. The time was the same, but the experience of the time was completely different. Richer, fuller, slower in the best possible way. So the next time you feel the calendar accelerating, when another month has ended, and you do not know exactly how it happened, remember what your brain is actually doing. It is not failing you. It is protecting you from unnecessary effort. But you have a choice inside that protection. You can accept the efficiency, or you can introduce friction. You can learn something that makes you feel stupid for a while. You can go somewhere that disorients. You can have a conversation that genuinely changes how you see something. You can choose the unfamiliar route. Your ancestors could not choose novelty. It chose them. You are the first version of a human being who has to go looking for it on purpose. And if you do, your brain will slow back down. The years will thicken. The memories will stack, And the next time someone asks you what you did last summer, you will actually be able to tell them. You spent your whole childhood waiting for time to pass. Now you know why time does not wait for you.